we got on the phone and I'm like, "Are you financially independent?" He's like, "I'm in my late 70s. I've been financially independent since I was 42." And he kind of let me bitch and whine about my life for about 2 hours. And I had the old woe is me story. I had the victim thing going on in my head. And then I get to the end and he's like, "Are you done?" There's this other thing. And so I was finally done. And he said, "Okay, we're not going to talk about your past ever again. We're done. What are you going to do the next hour to change your life?"
Welcome to the Dynamis podcast, where we are all about unlocking a fruitful life, removing your limiting beliefs, and getting to the next level. My name is Tim Garul, and I'm stoked to grow on this journey with you. As David Geffen says, we are each the figment of our own imagination, and some people have the greater ability to imagine than others. Welcome to the Dynamis podcast this week. We are going to jump right into the meat and potatoes of the episode. This week's episode is going to be centered all around how to go from broke and stuck to seven-figure income. And this week we are welcoming Chris Felton into the studio to tell his story and give us some action steps on how to accomplish this. I know that this is going to speak to a large portion of the audience. A lot of you listeners are entrepreneurs or just getting started on the journey and figuring out how to scale, how to remove your limiting beliefs and get to the next level. And I'm really excited to share with you what Chris has to share with us. So, Chris, welcome to the Dynamis podcast, my man.
Tim, awesome to be here. Looking forward to this. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Would you mind just giving a quick introduction? Who are you? Tell us about yourself, your journey, and the road you're on currently.
Yeah, 24-year financial services entrepreneur, 51, two kids, 22 and 19, living in Castle Pines Village, Colorado, and also an author and a speaker.
As Chris and I were getting connected to come on this podcast and, we were discussing ideas of how the show was going to go, we bonded over a commonality. We both share the same alma mater of CSU, Colorado State University. So shout out to CSU, go Rams.
The Harvard of the West.
That's what we refer to it as. Absolutely. Spent a lot of time in Fort Collins. It's a big part of my story, and I'm really, really fond of it. But let's jump in. Tell us about why this is a passion project for you, helping people go from broke and stuck to seven-figure earners. How did you get on this journey, and why is it so important to you?
So I wrote the book. I created the material because having been an entrepreneur for 24 years, having been a human for 51, I know what it's like to be stuck, Tim. I know what it's like to live in fear, doubt, and worry. I also know what it feels like when you feel like you're doing everything possible and nothing changes. I don't know if you've ever been there before, but it's a horrible place to be. It's also painful as a coach, having coached thousands of entrepreneurs, to watch them get so stuck that they feel that quitting and giving up on their dream life is really the only way out. And I was super close to doing that because I was $250,000 in credit card debt. I just went through an expensive divorce. I was paying my ex-wife $5,200 a month in alimony and child support. I'm in the middle of the Great Recession as a financial services entrepreneur. I signed a 6,000 square foot office lease that I couldn't afford. And my second, current, and last wife, in case she's listening, walked into a financial crap show she was unaware of. To say I was stuck is an understatement. I empathize with people that get to that place where they really feel like quitting is the only way out, because I was really, really close to doing that, but I didn't. And what I realized was I was the common denominator to all my problems. The common theme was me. I had to quit living in hopium, which is where most people live. They live in hopium. They're hoping the outside world changes while they insist on staying the same. I had to quit rearranging the furniture on the deck of the Titanic, which is what most people do. That damn boat's going down regardless of what I do with the deck furniture. And I had to take 100% responsibility for the mess that was my life. And I had to be all in on changing. And that's what I did, man. And so I invested tens of thousands of dollars in really figuring out how my mindset creates the results in my life. I invested thousands and thousands of hours really understanding how I screw myself over. And instead of going down that path of failure, what could I do to shift and change? And so I spent 16 months writing the book, making sure that it was something that people could relate to. I asked people to invest $22 in a book that cost me probably six figures to write. And my goal is they can learn from my stupidity, my mistakes, but what I did to change. And hopefully they can get better results than me and do it in a much shorter period of time. So that is my mission. It's to help people get unstuck and get on the path of the life that they deserve.
There's so much to unpack here. What I really hear you saying, the overt theme here is awareness, right? Awareness leads to choice. And it starts with an awareness of yourself, which evolves into, when you have awareness of yourself, you can have an awareness of choices, and the choices that you make turn into habits, and habits turn into wins. When I listen to somebody else's podcast, I go to these wealth building conferences or retreats or whatever. It's the story that resonates with me, that builds the foundation of trust. Before we dig into really dissecting the book and understanding the topics of the book, it would be really powerful for not only myself, but I'm sure the audience as well. I'd love to hear the comeback story. You told us about you were down and out, $250K in credit card debt, rearranging furniture on a sinking ship. Can you talk about those dark times? Can you talk about what was going through your head, and then the switch that you flipped? You started talking about investing thousands of dollars of understanding mindset, your self-awareness. What did that story look like coming back from that dark, deep hole? Because for me personally, when I go pick up a book and I follow somebody's story, I want to follow somebody who I want to emulate. And I'd love to just hear, that road back to success and some of your successes now before we start dissecting deeper into the book.
Yeah, I was CSU grad, got an accounting degree, moved to Denver in 93. I went to work for a large accounting firm and then made the decision to become an entrepreneur. Launched that in February 2000. And so it's been over 23 years that I left corporate America behind. Had a bad first marriage and had two kids with her, and later realized that I didn't expect that marriage to work. One of my favorite quotes is, "We don't get what we hope for, we get what we expect." And most people hope positive but expect negative. So that was a painful divorce. And then I did the sales job on Marlo, my current and last wife, and she thought I looked successful. I'm a CPA, I'm a financial advisor. I had a lot of trophies in my office, but she didn't realize behind the scenes what was going on financially. And then I let her in on it because I was meditating one day looking for answers. And literally the hand of God was like, hand the reins of your financial ship, the paying of the bills personally and business, hand all that over to your wife. She had been wanting to manage our finances, but I obviously didn't want her to know what was going on. But I got up out of my meditation because, if you don't take action within 5 seconds, your ego starts talking you out of it. And I handed the reins of the household money over to her. And then about a week later, Tim, she was like, "What did you do? Like, what the hell is this all about?" And then we sat down and had the come to Marlo meeting, which is no fun. And she introduced a four-letter word to me called a budget. And she was trying to rein in our spending. One of my other favorite quotes is, "Optimism and delusion sleep in the same bed together." And so I could not look at what was going on. I just kept telling her that it was going to get better. It was going to get better. It was going to get better, with no real change in strategy or me. And then fast forward, we had to get rid of our home. We're living in a rented home. And the bottoming out was me sitting in the kitchen talking to my wife, pleading with her, because the next day I have to make that $5,200 alimony and child support payment to my ex. I had no money, dude. I was out of money. And the only money we had was hers, because she was smart enough not to commingle money with a broke dude. And so I had to convince my wife to give me the money to pay my ex-wife. Shit hit the fan. She threw her purse. We had the fight of our lives. And I said, "Well, if it's so bad, why are we still together?" And she went upstairs and spent the rest of the night figuring that out. And that was my awakening. that's when I realized that, dude, you created the shit show and you have to change. And so the next day, we came together. And to my wife's immense credit, none of this happens without her. During her time of pain and stress, it would have been really easy for her to focus on the negative things in me and go on out the door, but she didn't. The preeminent law in personal growth and development is called the law of growth, and it's what you focus on expands. That's the preeminent law. Everything we do to get ourselves to a level of personal growth and development is to get us to focus on the right stuff. And what she did is she broke my habitual self-sabotaging pattern of relationships. Is we'd hit some adversity, we'd hit a wall, and then I'd start looking for the negative. And then I'm like, well, there's got to be some utopian sunshine, lollipops, and roses unicorn relationship out there that requires no work and it's just good all the time. So she broke that pattern. And so we sat down. She said, we're not getting divorced. We're not declaring bankruptcy. We're not getting jobs. We're going to grow our business. We had access to wealthy mentors. We had that. And she said, I'm going to reach out to them. These are world-class people. They had wealth in all areas of their life. And she said, I'm going to figure out what they think, what they do. And she was kind of like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to change. And I'm not interested in changing. Most people are interested in a great life. And the problem in the United States today is people believe they can get something for nothing. And when you're interested, any roadblock will cause you to take a chicken exit and go on to the next thing. But I said I was committed. And she's like, what does that look like? I'm like, I'm committed to changing like an Olympic athlete is with their sport. That's what I'm going to do. I'm all in. So what I did is I got my ass up 4:30, 5 in the morning. I'm still a freak about it. And I studied mindset, mainly mindset around money and how a CPA and financial advisor could be as broke as I was. And I was all in, dude. And I hired a world-class financially independent coach for 4.5 years. And he taught me some amazing things. It's my favorite quote of Mel Robbins. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened over time. And we had a jaw-dropping transformation, not just financially and taking our income up over 7 figures and becoming multimillionaires and all that good stuff. I had a personal transformation in all areas of my life. Spiritually, physically, I got better energy at 51 than I ever have had in my life. So I wrote the book because I think I got some answers for some people that can really help them, because we are in the best position to serve the people that we once were. That's my whole goal in life, is to do that.
You took the words right out of my mouth. The next words out of my mouth were, who better suited than you to write a book on this topic, because we're best suited to serve those who we once were. So that's a really powerful story. I think it's important to lay some context here that maybe isn't innate. You mentioned that you guys had a business. When you said we're not going to go get jobs, what your wife meant was we're not going to shut down the business, go apply somewhere and take W-2 jobs. You're going to compound. And oftentimes when we get into these deep, dark situations and the walls are closing in and there's no hope through the other side, those experiences form us into who we need to become to sit at the head of the table down the road. Our future self is depending on us to go through this adversity to be formed and forged, just like steel goes through, the fiery furnace and is pounded and refined over time and all those impurities come out. So too are these adverse times. And you mentioned a couple things. Number one, your wife. You are incredibly lucky to have a partner that came alongside you and made a plan of action and was willing to execute on that plan. I talk a lot about the superpower of marriage in this podcast. And marriage, it can go one of two ways. It can be the millstone hung around your neck that drags you to the bottom of the sea, or it can be this secret weapon that literally launches you into an outer atmosphere. And having a partner that is aligned with you, that is willing to sit in adversity and do the hard thing, is a life-changing gift that can see you through those dark times. There is no entrepreneur on the planet that can walk through the journey unscathed. It's like this crazy roller coaster. And I think what is oftentimes underestimated is the insane level of difficulty of riding that roller coaster over time. And mindset becomes incredibly powerful. Secret weapons is our mindset in navigating through those stormy waters. Obviously, you wrote this book through a collection of your experiences, through aggregating coaching, you put all those stories together and came up with essentially the blueprint, the action plan that carried you through a dark, dark time that oftentimes other people would quit. Where did that coaching come from? How did you search for a coach? Can you talk about some of that coaching experience?
Yeah, I have a pretty decent sized business in my industry. And so when word got out on the street that I was looking for a coach, people were reaching out to me
Yeah.
and they're like, "Hey, I want to coach you." And I said, "Okay, are you financially independent?" And all of them were like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, sorry. That's the end of the interview." I want that. I wanted financial peace of mind. I wanted financial relief like oxygen. And so it was just a weird set of circumstances where a guy literally came into my business. He was with me for like a grand total of a week, and he made a referral to this coach who I never met in person. We did it all over the phone. And his name was Coach Roy Dayton. We got on the phone, and I'm like, "Are you financially independent?" He's like, "I'm in my late 70s. I've been financially independent since I was 42. And he kind of let me bitch and whine about my life for about 2 hours. And I had the old woe is me story. I had the victim thing going on in my head. And then I get to the end and he's like, "Are you done?" "There's this other thing." And so I was finally done. And he said, "Okay, we're not going to talk about your past ever again. We're done. What are you going to do the next hour to change your life?" And that's when I hired him, because that's exactly the kind of mentality that I needed. And he said, "Chris, you're a great goal setter. You're really good at setting goals. You suck as a goal achiever." And he taught me, which is a whole pillar in my book called the game plan, actually how to do it, how to set goals and go after. I've been running the same system for 15 years. But the number one thing, Tim, that he gave me was something called objective reality. My good friend, he was my book coach on the book. He wrote my foreword, a guy named Steve Siebold. He's a legend in the personal development space. And he's got the longest running study of self-made millionaires and billionaires on the planet, over 1,300 that he's interviewed over the last 35 years. And the number one skill of a world-class thinker and a high performer is objective reality. It is the capacity to look at your results and own them without emotionally beating yourself up. And the problem with most middle-class thinkers, the masses, the average performers, is they don't want to feel bad about themselves. So because they don't want to feel bad about themselves, they don't want to look at their shit. And if you don't look at it, it gets worse. That was me. That's the whole optimism and delusion, sleep in the same bed together. He got me to look at my results. He got me to own my results. He said, "Chris, you need a relationship to results. You have no relationship to results." So the reason I was vaguely successful is I just worked all the time, 80, 90 hours a week. He's like, "What do you do for 80, 90 hours a week? You must be dumb. What is your problem? Like, what does it take 80 to 90 hours to do?" I want to cover what we did here a little bit, and we can do a deeper dive. But we just had a weekly coaching session, and it was all about my results. And I've coached a lot of people, and it's amazing how much time I spend digging to get the actual results from people. And for 6 months, we would waste all this time of like, what actually happened? Why did it happen? This. And then finally, and it's in the chapter in my book called Get a Coach. Finally, I was like, this is stupid. I'm paying this guy. I've wasted 6 months trying to prove to him that my life isn't a shit show. Well, guess what? It is. And so we got on the call, and I said, "Coach, let me start. Sorry to waste your time. This is what I said I was going to do last week. I didn't do it. Here's what became more important than me keeping my word. However, here's what I learned, and this is what I'm going to do different. Will you keep coaching me?" And so that became the next 4 years. I was talking to one of my guys, been with me forever, who's struggling with objective reality, still this conversation. I said, "You know what, Bill? My dream is a team that operates 100% from objective reality. That's my dream."
When you mention objective reality, there's a couple things that are jumping out at me right away. And how I interpret your definition of objective reality is it's a combination, it's a mixture of two things. Number one, it's separating ourselves into the category of being proactive versus reactive, right? So when we're reactive, we're emotional, we're reactionary, we're a pinball, and we're just getting bounced around and we have no control. We have absolutely no discernment of where we're going, the outcomes, everything happens to me. It's everybody else's fault, and you will stay there stuck forever. When we realize that we are in charge of our outcomes, we switch into this proactive mindset. When you're proactive, it's the realization that you can get anywhere you want to go because not only are you the pilot, you also own the plane and there's a tank full of gas. All you have to do is get in the airplane, turn that thing on, and decide where you want to fly. So half of your definition of objective reality to me is the understanding that you are a proactive individual in charge of your life. The other half of this objective reality definition, how I'm interpreting it, is nobody wants to get beat up. But we combine that with this really unique thing called grace, right? God gives us grace every single day. We get to wake up with a clean slate. Now, the power of that objective reality is tying that into identity-based goals. Identity-based goal setting is I am a person who does this thing, right? So I will gain 20 pounds of muscle because I'm going to wake up every day at 6 a.m. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to take my protein. I am a person who does what I say I'm going to do. This is my identity. It's not over optimistic. It's not hopium or optimism. This is my identity. And what you did is you married that identity-based goal setting with extreme accountability, because that extreme accountability is anchored in your objective reality, that proactive mindset of I'm in charge of my life. I have the ability to impact the outcome. This is who I am. This is my identity. These are the goals that are anchored to my identity. I'm holding myself accountable. And if we fail, sometimes we have the awareness, the mindset and the awareness to analyze our failures and shortcomings, not beat the shit out of ourselves, put the stick down and take proactive action to continue forward on the path. And it happens over time, just like you said. It's a compounding effect. It's not overnight. It's not quick, but the strength of that compounding over time result is incredible. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're speaking the same language here. I joined a mastermind. It's a men's mastermind for entrepreneurs and millionaires, and the pillars are exactly in alignment. And so I'm a big believer in everything that you're talking about. And I'd love if you could just give us an overview of your book. What are the pillars in the book?
Yeah, kind of the overriding theme is it's okay to get stuck. It's not okay to stay there. And really the keys to overcoming stuck is we have to humble down. And we don't like to be told that we're not delivering, especially us guys. Our ego's not our amigo, right? And it's easier to entrench ourselves and come up with excuses about why we're not delivering versus humble down. And I had to get really humble. Second thing is we have to be willing to change. And it's just not even optional. You have to be willing to change. The masses are addicted to comfort. And one of my first quotes in my book is from an author named Jeff Shore. And it's a life spent seeking comfort results in an entirely uncomfortable existence. And, trees are growing or dying. Grass is either growing or dying. We as humans are the same. And if you're seeking comfort, you're automatically in decline. So it's not optional. And then you must be willing to do the work, but the work is going to be worth it. And that's one asset I had, Tim, going for me is I think a lot of people struggle with, is it really going to be worth it or not? And I knew it would be, because I started the habit in college of finding successful people and saying, hey, was it worth it? And they were never confused by the question. They always answered it emphatically that it was worth it, meaning everything they went through to create the life that they currently had of success was worth it. So that's kind of the overriding theme. And then pillar one is, getting out of our own way. And that's really what we talked about, these sabotaging patterns that we just unconsciously go down. And we're nothing more than Bill Murray and Groundhog Day, just experiencing life over and over again. So really I got good at understanding how I screw myself over. And because of that awareness, I was able to pillar two, shift And those are all my techniques and strategies that I personally use to shift, to get a different thought, a different feeling, a different action, a different result. The third pillar is relationships, because everything we want in life comes from and through people. So those have to work. The fourth pillar is what we kind of talked about, the game planning, of the goal setting, really the strategies, tactics, and processes. And then the fifth is really the dream. I'm very fortunate. I got a incredible mentor in my life. He's a self-made billionaire. And we were talking a couple months ago. And he said, dude, are you dream flat? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's 71. He acts like he's 30. He's like, man, I've been dreaming more than ever. God, I got dreams. Self-made billionaire. He's had a lot of dreams come true. And he's a world-class guy. Great marriage, great spiritual life, great kids, great everything. He's like, most people are dream flat or dream dead. And he said, what are your top 25 dreams? I'm like, top 25 dreams? I'm like, I got 3. He's like, start your top 25 dream list, my friend. Let's go. Get this thing out there, right? Because us as humans, our default is fear, doubt, worry, and procrastination. And so how do you overcome the default? You got to be dreaming. And the masses think dreaming is a weird thing. The world class know that dreaming is the key to overcoming fear, doubt, worry, procrastination. I spent a whole pillar on the dreaming, the ideal life, what I did to create the life that I wanted, and what I did to teach myself to stay focused on that and not allowing my outside world that was a shit show to impact my thinking, impact my focus on living my ideal life. So anyway, I hit you with a lot there, but that's kind of the layout of the book.
I love it. I love it. This podcast, I preach all the time the exact same thing that you're saying and doing. Get in proximity of people who your biggest, hairiest, most scary, audacious goal, that's their Tuesday morning. That's an everyday thing for them. Get in proximity of people who are doing things bigger than you could have ever imagined, and their norm is your hairy, audacious goal. And it's insane. It's insane how fast that becomes normal, and you start to dream and think bigger and become bigger, right? We have all this infinite, limitless potential that we were put on this earth to live out. And so many of us are living dead, zombies, walking around, never ever understanding ourselves or our potential or what we were created to fully live out and be and exemplify. And I just love your message. Let's talk specifically to somebody in the audience right now. Let's just say there's somebody out there rearranging the furniture on the Titanic every single day without that awareness. If they are listening to this podcast, how do they know that this playbook is for them, that they need to pick it up, read it, and start taking action on the principles inside that book? How do they gain that initial awareness? How do you speak to that individual just doing the same thing every day as the ship's going down?
It's the ultimate objective reality question that my coach gave me anytime I would push back on what he told me to do. And he said, based on results, how's your way working?
Based on results.
Right? Based on results. Dude, that's it. It's just like I said, this coaching conversation I was having today with somebody I love very much. And I'm like, dude, I'm not your enemy. Based on results, how's it going? And I still have to do that, right? I can get delusional. I can get deluded. And so if your way's working, keep doing it, man. But my coach is like, dude, your way's not working. Your current wife, Chris, you're going to have a second alimony payment. Like, you're a drunk. My kids were little. They lived in Atlanta. I was in Colorado. I mean, they were a year and 4 years old. You know, I'm getting on a plane Thursday, go see them. They're 22 and 19. I mean, they're killing it. And so if you're living the results that you want, it's great. If you're not, it's one of my affirmations on my business plan I read every single day. I love helping people wake up. And I had to have a purse fly past my head for my wife to wake up. And you don't have to hit rock bottom. You don't have to be sick to get better, but you got to own your results. And so the reason I'm a fan of the book, because it passed my self-made billionaire test. I sent him the book. I'm like, he's not even going to read it. His wife read it in 2 days. He read it in 2 days. I won't mention names, but he's mentored some big household names in the personal growth and development space. And he said, Chris, I didn't even endorse their book. I don't endorse shit. I endorse this.
Wow.
Because this is real. You're not preaching. You're giving your stories and the stuff that actually works. Anybody can write a book, anybody can read Think and Grow Rich and throw it back up on a piece of paper and say, do it. But what I teach actually did. I don't know. We got 73 reviews on Amazon, and they're jaw-dropping reviews. And hey, I'm not a guru. I haven't arrived. I don't have it all figured out. But what makes me different than other people is just my commitment to grow and develop and change. And so books always help me, Tim. They always help me shift my mind. But I had like 12 or 15 books kind of spread out everywhere. And what I love about the book, it can be an ongoing resource for people to shift.
I'm going to make this selfish. I'm going to make it about me, okay? And I'm going to tell you a little story. So you're talking to a guy who is living what you are talking about, okay? I wake up in the morning, I do my affirmation. I decided I want to become a millionaire. Why? Because I had a volatile financial start as a kid, okay? So what do rich people do? They read books. What kind of books do they read? Development books. What else do? They get coaching. They take action. They make identity-based goals. A few years ago, I got married. And my wife came alongside me and we agreed to enter this journey together. And we get up every day. We take action. We wake up early. We work out. We take care of our health, our minds, our bodies, our spirituality. And over time, my wife and I, we became millionaires. And the reason that this podcast is out is to help those along the way in our path, in our proximity. You know, we put ourselves in the proximity of those way more successful than us. And we just always humble ourselves with the understanding that we don't know everything. We don't have it figured out. And that's why I have individuals like you selfishly come on this podcast so that I can learn from assimilation and proximity. I don't feel like I have it all figured out, but I'm in alignment with everything you're saying. I could read your book and say 100% I'm on board. I'm on board. I'm going to take action. I'm on board. I've reached a place in my business recently where I wake up, I take action, I have identity-based goals, extreme accountability. I do what I say I'm going to do. But where my shortcoming lies is clarity. I know as soon as I'm focused on a crystal clear image of where God is calling me to climb, that mountain is as good as climbed. It might as well be taking an elevator to the top. It's like I'm like a rocket ship on the launch pad, ready to go. My problem, selfishly, is that I'm having a really, really hard time getting super clear on what is that mountain. What would you say to an entrepreneur like me, who's bought in, whose identity is based on all these principles that you're talking about, who takes action, who's having a difficult time getting clarity to get into that next atmosphere?
Clarity is one of the most beat up topics on the planet. Everybody talks about it. I was a personal development zombie. I don't know if you've ever fallen in that category before. A lot of people think being a personal development zombie is like the key, right? If I take in 4 million podcasts, you see people like CEOs read 60 books a month. And I'm like, what the hell for? My superpower is grabbing a concept and making it work in my life. And if I can make 5 to 7 changes a year, I'm going to transform. So clarity is not hard to get. It's just easier to put it off till tomorrow. And then we deal with a lot of urgent things. We got this weapon of mass distraction that controls our lives. And so with me, clarity is just scheduling it and sitting your ass down and sitting there until you get it. And I have to do it with my wife all the time. When we're not unified, right? We don't have a unifying goal. Most couples don't have a unifying goal. When we came out the next day and said, we're going to stay together, when we were back in the dark place, we sat down and we said, we're not moving until we get clarity. We're not going to get clarity someday. I think people I'm going to get clarity at some point. Well, it's kind of like Napoleon Hill. He couldn't figure out a title for his book until he demanded that it show up because he had to. Clarity doesn't have to be hard, but for me, it's like, I'm going to go someplace that's pleasing. I grab a journal, I grab a pen, I start thinking. My ego fights me for about the first 15 minutes, but Earl Nightingale says after that, you enter this thing called the vein of gold. And the vein of gold is when Spirit's speaking through your subconscious, and you sit there and you just say, I demand, God, please think through me, live through me, love through me, speak through me, write through me. Don't let me leave until I have clarity of what it is that I want. And if you expect to get it, you're going to get it. And it doesn't have to be that huge. I mean, when I turned 50, I'm like, what are you going to do? Well, I went and sat down, and the inspiration was, You need to impact 10 million or more people before you depart. Okay. How? Not important. The book came to me 90 days later, right? I had a friend same age as me die within a week. I'm like, what are you waiting for? And then Steve Siebold calls me. I'll teach you how to do it. So anyway, I don't know if that answered your question, but it's just like, let's not, I'm going to get clear at some point. We just need to sit our asses down and think and say, what do I want? What do I want my life to look like? What would my ideal life look like? And I got a ton of stuff in the book that people can just literally use the same questions that I use. Demand to get clear now. Don't put it off in the future.
Ultimately, maybe I don't need to know right now. Maybe I just need to keep rowing, keep taking action, compounding, and it will become obvious, right? Because I'm becoming more undeniable, right?
Yep.
Anyways, Chris, it has been an absolute pleasure. I cannot wait to read the book. Where can we get in touch with you? How can we find out more about you? Where can we find the book? Tell us all the things.
Yeah, website is chrisfelton.me. My main mode of operation is speaking workshops. My master class is going to be up in about a week. It's a deep dive in the book. You can go to the book tab and get the book on the website, chrisfelton.me.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. Everybody listening, I'm going to have everything you need to know about Chris, his book, his clickable links, everything will be down below in the show notes. Do yourself a favor, go check out the book. Whenever somebody tells me that they're personal friends with billionaires and they're getting mentorship from billionaires, I listen to generally what they have to say because they have access to information that I haven't unlocked yet. And so please do yourself a favor and do the same thing. If you like this type of information, if this is helping you change your life and get to the next level, do me a favor, pay the tax, like the show, leave me a review. It helps way more when you leave a review instead of just hitting the 5-star link. And if you want to get around proximity of people who are doing next level things, who are growing their net worth, who are unlocking a life that you dream of, come out, meet us in person. The first Tuesday of every month, we get together at our Tacoma Pints and Properties. Just sign up. It's in the show notes. Do yourself a favor. Come say hi. Show up in the room. Keep your mouth shut and listen. You'd be amazed at how much it changes your life and how much you learn. Thank you guys for sticking around. As always, we will catch you on the flip side.